Do you ever feel stuck, like you're living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast with Sharon Lechter. I'm excited today because I'm introducing you to a new friend who I expect to be long-term because I really respect what he's accomplished and what he's doing. And I met Glenn through Lisa Copeland. So, you know, Lisa's one of my best friends forever. And she made this introduction and I'm so excited. Glenn Lundy, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh my goodness, you're so very welcome. Thank you so very much for having me on. It's really truly an honor.
I absolutely love the bio he sent. He says, Glenn Lundy, husband to one, father to seven. I love
that. That's right. Husband to one, father to, and that's been changing. That bio keeps changing. Like every year I have to do new recordings.
I asked him for the age range and whoa, a lot of respect for you and your wife. I tell you, it's wonderful. The lucky children, I'm sure. No, and you have Rise and Grind, your popular morning show, and then you're also the CEO and founder of Grow Your Business for God's Sake. And that's what I'm excited to talk about today because you've invited me to come participate in an event that we're doing in Nashville. But I want to hear a little bit more about little Glenn. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So little Glenn grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, out there near Prince. And little Glenn's parents my dad was in the military originally, so that's how we ended up out there. And then they split up when I was in my when I was like 11 years old, my parents split up. And it was very interesting because I am, if you can't tell, I've got a little color in me. So I'm mixed. I'm half black and half white. And my dad and mom, when they got divorced, my dad's black, mom's white. When they got divorced, they remarried. And my dad remarried an African-American woman. My mom remarried a Caucasian male. And they ended up moving in 2 apartments apart. So
goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I had my dad in apartment 30 with his new wife, and they had 4 kids, and then they had 2 more kids together. So we had 8 kids in that house when my sister and I were there. And then 2 doors down, we had my mom's house, and she remarried, Everett. It was pretty quiet over there. So it was really interesting dynamic-wise because I grew up with both cultures. Dad's house had every stereotype you could think of as far as everybody played sports, they watched basketball, they listened to gospel music and hip hop and made fried chicken, collard greens and chitlins and all that good stuff. And then mom's house was like country music, rock and roll. It was a little more mellow, it was just interesting. So I grew up with these 2 cultures and dynamics. And now that I'm older, it's such a blessing. But when I was young, it was very difficult for me to understand who I was or where I fit in. And so as I went through high school and my skin was too light for me to be black and it was too dark for me to be white. And so I had this ability to kind of get along with everyone on the surface, but I didn't have any really deep-seated, strong relationships. And that led to me getting into a lot of trouble. I kind of got into a lot of trouble in my high school days. I was always a good student. I was always smart. Forward thinking is what I call it now. I was always forward thinking, but I didn't really have like a moral foundation to stand on, and then I also didn't really have a cultural foundation to stand on. So I spent a very big part of my life just living for Glenn. And what I found rather quickly as that progressed into my adult years is that when you live a selfish existence, you typically end up alone, right? And And that's where I did. So I ended up, I went through some different jobs. I was in the car business for a while. I left that. I had a child, my oldest, who's now 20. And when she was 6 years old, I lost custody of her, just based on poor decisions, because I still was living for me and not living for others. And so when I lost custody of her, I kind of did this road trip trying to find myself thing, and reached a really low point in San Diego, California, where I decided that I was gonna take my life. Right? I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I'm giving you the quick version. Um, and once I reached that point, and I did, and I attempted, and luckily God plucked me out of the ocean that I love, the big beautiful ocean. He plucked me out, and gave me a second chance to try to figure things out, and that's when the real fun began. Was at that point. So that's 26 years in about 3.5 minutes.
Well, you've got, I mean, with all of that at the beginning, you definitely turned yourself around, because you have an incredible career. I mean, you have just in the auto industry alone, but you've taken your expertise and taken it to multiple different industries. So tell us what you love doing today.
What I love doing today, I love a couple things. I really love my morning show, #Rise and Grind. I love what we've created with that. It's an online community, 30,000 strong. And I get this opportunity every single morning. I get an opportunity to share an experience with people, right? Technology is really crazy these days. So just back in those San Diego's days, before I thought of taking my own life, I spent a little bit of time homeless. And while I was homeless, the one thing that stands out that I remember most about that experience in my life is I was invisible, right? Like, people wouldn't make eye contact with me. They would literally, they would turn their heads. They just wouldn't make eye contact. And so I felt invisible, and I felt like I had nothing to look forward to tomorrow. I had no hope for tomorrow, because every
And I
day
bet
was.
a lot of our listeners and viewers right now have felt that way. If they don't right now, I remember in my lifetimes when I just felt like I was like, invisible is a really good word, insignificant.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And so I had no hope, and I had nothing to look forward to. And that's kind of what took me to that point where I decided to try to, take things into my own hands. But now with Rise and Grind, I'm live every morning, 5:30 a.m., Monday through Friday. And I know that, and I hope that God uses that so that if someone feels alone, or they don't have anything else to look forward to tomorrow, or they feel invisible, I want them to know that, hey, just hang tight. At 5:30 tomorrow, Glenn's going to be live, and you can jump on with him, and you can interact with him. You can comment, you can talk to me, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to try to inspire you. I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to educate you, and just hang on. You've got something to look forward to, right? So Rise and Grind is something I'm really passionate about, and I love it for that one reason. I just hope there's somebody on the other side of the camera that is uplifted and encouraged to just go one more day. Let's just go one more day, right? Knowing that I'm going to be there. And I make sure to end every single show the same way. I end it, and I tell people, I remind people that they are a child of God, uniquely made by the God of the universe to be the best versions of themselves that they can possibly be. And then I let them know that I love them. And I say at every show, hey, I love you. If nobody's told you yet this morning, I want to be the first. I stinking love you, because no one would tell me that when I was at my darkest. And that's all I wanted, was for someone to validate that my existence mattered, and to know that I was loved.
Oh, I think that's so true. And so many people, I mean, as many of the viewers and listeners know, that I lost my son. The same thing. Hey, we continued going through that I'm not worthy atmosphere. And, and it was really hard. We all can probably think of somebody in our life right now that we probably should just call and say, I love you. Right.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
give them a hug. So when did you find your faith, Glenn? Because it sounds like you found it and never looked back. So,
well, I wish I could say I just picked it right up. I was pretty hard-headed. It took me a while. I went through a journey after being plucked out of the ocean. I kind of went through a journey trying to understand my spirituality. And I studied Scientology, I studied Buddhism, I studied a lot of different things on my spiritual walk. But there were a couple experiences along the way that really solidified it for me. One was the passing of my grandfather, and that was a really interesting story and experience. He was dying from I'll try to cut it a little bit short, but he was dying from cancer, and they said he didn't have much longer to live. And my family's all military, so it took everybody a long time to get to the hospital. And he hung on to the very end until the very last family member arrived. He held on. And then we had this moment where just before he passed away, my stepdad was able to tell him his favorite joke. My grandfather loved dirty jokes, so he told him a dirty joke. And then my grandfather said, bring me my wife, which he had been married to for 49 years. She had never had a driver's license. They were inseparable that entire 49 years. And he said, bring me my wife. She climbed in bed with him. He wrapped his arms around her, and he passed away in that moment. And when that happened, I thought, wait a minute. Science can't explain this to me. How did this man choose when he's going to go and how he's going to go, with a smile on his face and his wife in his arms? So that really was my first, like, okay, we are spiritual beings. I can't argue that anymore. We are spiritual beings. And then there was a series of circumstances and events that led me to Southland Christian Church out here in Kentucky. And once I started going to the church there and really kind of getting into the word, getting a better understanding of what all that looks like and how it all works for us. And that led me to ultimately being baptized there. And then from then I've just continued to explore my journey, right? Like I like to study successful people, and Jesus was pretty darn successful.
Yes.
Right.
And I think it's really, I really want to talk about this because, I'm very strong on my faith, and, but you've taken this entrepreneurial path and helping companies and helping entrepreneurs, and certainly even very big brands continue to grow and go to the next level. And at the same time, you've had your strong faith, and now you're basically putting a stake in the ground and saying, let's do it for God, right? That's right. This event that you're creating. And I think, I had a little pushback when I released the book Outwitting the Devil because of the spirituality side of it. Mm-hmm. And I was okay with that. But, you put a little target on your back sometimes when you go there. And I'm excited to be part of this journey with you. So tell us a little bit about the launch of this, Build It for God's Sake.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. That was another aha moment for me. So I got a contract with Dupree Miller to as a literary agent, and she asked me, hey, Glenn, send me everything you've written, because we didn't really know what direction we're going to go. So she's like, send me everything you've written. So I'm like, okay. So I sit down with the computer. My wife goes to take a nap, right? She needs a nap. We got all these kids. So my wife goes to take a nap, and I pull out the computer and I open an email and I start to type, and all of a sudden these words just came out on the screen. It said, grow your business for God's sake. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, what is this, right? What is this? And so I kept on typing, and 2.5 hours later, I had outlined a 13-chapter book called Grow Your Business for God's Sake. And so my wife wakes up from the nap, and I show her, I'm like, hey, honey, look what I just did. And she's like, I just took a nap and you just wrote a book. I'm like, I didn't really write the book. I was kind of a vessel. It just flowed right out of me. And, so very interestingly enough, a couple days later, I had a gentleman on my show named Steve Brewster, who will also be speaking at the conference. He was on my show, and his church pastor, Galen Davis, watched the show, called me the very next day and said, Glenn, will you come have lunch with me? I love your spirit, your faith, your energy, and you've also been really successful in business. I want to talk to you about something. And so I go down for lunch, and he says, hey, Glenn, there is an underserved portion in the church, and it's our business owners, our entrepreneurs, our leaders. It's our wealthy people in the church. He's like, my petitioners, they tell me they don't necessarily feel comfortable going to church in their Lexus, right? Like they've got a nice car. They don't want to drive it to the church, or they have a big house and they feel guilty about it sometimes. And he's like, and that's not right. And I want to do something about that. And he's like, so how do you blend the two, and what can we do? And as soon as he said it, I just looked at him. I'm like, we can hold a business conference at your church and we can call it Grow Your Business for God's Sake, right? and he was like, yes, that's it. That's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
And
I don't think God is God that wanted us to have scarcity. God is a God of abundance, right?
Absolutely.
The more successful you are, the more other people you can help. So.
That's the bottom line, is if I can help people grow their business, especially good people. I prefer to associate with good people. No, all people are good, but you know what I mean. But if I can help people grow their business and then show them that, one, it's okay to love God and be wealthy and be a big business owner and have success. That's okay. But then also be able to show them that once you do and you reach those levels, and all along the way, actually, be a good steward and give back and make an impact in your community, right? Because who can make every individual can make a massive impact, but who can make the biggest financial impact on a community? It's going to be somebody who's got some money, right? It takes money to make a financial impact on a community. And so I'm super excited of how it all came together, 20 years of being in business. And within a couple months of me leaving the auto industry, now I get to blend, like you said, blend my faith and everything that I've learned. I get to blend it and still feed business owners and still help people grow their business, for God's sake. I love it.
Well, this podcast is going to be there for evergreen. So not only are you hosting this event that's going to be in a couple of months, but you're writing the book. Tell us a little bit more about what your vision is for Build Your Business for God's Sake.
Yes, my vision for Grow Your Business for God's Sake is, I think it's really unique and interesting that we have an opportunity to go into the churches, right? The big mega churches where we can impact a lot of people. And these mega churches typically have connections and relations with other churches, like sister churches overseas and so on and so forth. So the big vision is we start in Nashville. We do one. And what's great about these conferences is the church gets a portion of the ticket sales. So the church wins financially as well.
Sure.
The local, we're selecting a local organization down in Nashville. For this particular one, it's Rescue One Global, which they're combating the sex trafficking of children that's going on in the world. It's awful. So they're combating that, and a portion of the ticket sales are going to that. So we're helping at the community. We're helping the church. We're pouring into the business leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners in the area. We're doing all of these things. And so my thought process, my vision is, once we roll through this one, then we can now take a blueprint and go to the next mega church and say, hey, here's how we can serve you and your people and your community. And then from there, the next mega church, here's how we serve you, your people, and your community. And then we say, hey, do you have any sister churches overseas? And who knows, maybe, just maybe, a few years from now, we're in like China, where my buddy Galen told me there's a church out there that had 100,000 people go through on Easter weekend. 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if we could be in an opportunity that we could have to show the love of Jesus Christ to 100,000 people in China, right? So that's my small vision of the future of Grow Your Business for God's Sake.
And that definitely qualifies as a play big vision for what we want to do. And I think, really, again, igniting the thought of a God of abundance, and the fact that capitalism is not anti-Christian. Capitalism allows us to create success and rewards those who create and serve others, right? Successful businesses solve a problem or serve a need.
That's right.
So as you're doing that, you're getting compensated for it, and gives you the opportunity to give back. So I'm absolutely delighted to support you in this mission in any way that I can. So if people want to find Glenn Lundy, how do they find you, Glenn?
Oh, I make it so easy nowadays. Just go to glenlundy.com and there's links to Instagram and Facebook and my Rise and Grind show and Grow Your Business for God's Sake. All that stuff is all in a one-stop shop at
And Glenn
glenlundy.com.
has two N's. Just want to make sure. Glenn has two N's and Lundy, Lundy. So
That's right. I tell people I have two N's because I'm twice as nice, right? But I went ahead and bought the URL with just one N too.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's a smart move. Hey, he teaches business. That's a smart move. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn, thank you so much for being my guest. You're going to hang out for a few more minutes because we're going to take you into our private Facebook group to get even more personal. I don't know how much more personal you can get than you shared so much with us.
Hey,
But,
thank you so
for
much.
hanging out with us. And I really do look forward to working with you, Glenn, and seeing what can be created as we, grow our businesses for God's sake together. So thanks for being with us, Glenn.
Thank you, Sharon. It's an honor.
Thank you for listening to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes and leave us a review, as well as join us in other areas of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Sharon Lechter, and for Facebook, author Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.